what is an interesting thing about this draft? I mentioned this on the podcast yesterday with Drew and Matt, again, at Beating the Book. Thanks for everybody who's downloading that. For a league that is this pass-happy, and a league that in the last couple drafts has had so many wide receivers picked in the first round, and in a league with all those, with so many of those first-round wide receiver draft picks have panned out to be amazing, what a relatively quiet draft this is at the top when it comes to wide receivers. That's a pretty under the radar, bizarre development of this draft.
I totally agree with how that number has moved. I mean, that was did it open 5.5 or was it 4.5 juiced heavily over? Because it's like 3.5 now.
It's 3.5.
And you haven't heard, besides bad early returns on some of these guys, you haven't heard anything about Addison or Quentin Johnson, it seems like, in a month and a half.
That is so true. And Addison, for a minute, was supposed to be the guy. Mm-hmm. And then for another minute, Quentin Johnson was supposed to be the guy. And now people have sort of settled on Smith and Jigba with Zay Flowers probably being the one who's gotten the second most amount of buzz.
The one you've been asking all our guests. If I had to make a bet right now, which I wish I had this market available, second wide receiver selected, Zay Flowers at plus money. I think that's a good bet. Plus 135 at DraftKings, I would make that bet.
I got him over 21.5, so I hope if he is the second, he doesn't go too early.
I found trade props, by the way.
Oh, you did? What's the number?
Yeah. You know, your favorite place, wagering on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Over 5.5 trades total, first round trades minus 150, under plus 110. How about total round one trades within the top 10 picks set at 1, minus 150 to the over, plus 110 to the under.
That feels like an over or nothing.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I was about to say, who would bet on this stuff? And now I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great bet.
So I just thought, like the one in the top 10.
So you just got to get one and it's a free roll.
One, it's point. A push. Get two, you're winning.
I think the first round one, though, is kind of crazy because who's going to sit there for the whole round and be like, I need another trade?
Yeah, I don't know. I always enjoy seeing what these numbers are posted at, but yeah, I wouldn't be betting that.
Is this the first year where the draft is not giving us that warm, fuzzy feeling? Based off of today's news, is anything being added to negate some of the potential dead tickets? Okay, a couple great questions here. As to the latter, yeah, for instance, like take my C.J. Strouds. So my C.J. Strouds to go number one. I know those two units are in the negative right there to start with, right? So absolutely what I did is started to focus, and because of all this, literally up until this morning, right, all this confusion at the top of the draft, and by confusion, I mean like none of us knows. Not one human being knows. If you're going to assume Bryce Young at 1, nobody knows what's going to happen at 2, 3. Nobody with any kind of certainty. So as a result, I've tried to focus on later, the Jackson Smith and Jigba unders at 14.5. Him being the first wide receiver, I bet, way earlier. That's probably still my best bet. Lucas Van Ness to go under 11.5, top 10, plus money, big. So like I've tried to make that those dead tickets. I've tried to make that back later in the draft because to do more stuff early. By the way, with the exception of the Patriots' first selection being a quarterback, just in case of that trade. That's the only exception. Over 5.5 offensive linemen. Like, I laid minus 281 because I think it actually should be way higher than that. And it is, by the way, way higher than that now. It's like minus 4 something. So I've tried to do it, later in the draft. Now, here's the thing. I also have a couple that I bet later in the draft that are probably dead money, too. Like, I had Skoronski over Paris Johnson, plus 120. That doesn't seem like it's going to win now. So I could start this draft 3 units in the hole and I'm just trying to make it back because I'm betting the other stuff a lot more. Now, here's the thing, and this gets back to the warm, fuzzy feeling thing, because Kelley and I were just talking about this off air. And Kelley, let's bring you in for this, which is, yeah, this is the first one of recent history of when we've been able to bet on the draft. This is the one that's been the most confusing. And I know a lot of people are getting, this person has been doing so great in this draft year after year. This person has been doing so great. I would match our draft record on a numbers game over anybody's or as much or as great as anybody's. But I will tell you this, I've said all along, eventually we're going to run into one where we lose. So yesterday I asked Kelley, I'm like, if I could just give you a net positive right now, however modest that is, would you take it? And your answer, Kelley, was?
Yeah.
Me too. Now, you made the better point off air. Would you like to share what that was? Which is just whether we win or lose, the bigger point is what?
Bigger point is just how much this stuff has been moving for the past 8 weeks now. And think about this number one pick. You've seen 4 different quarterbacks that you could have gotten at the worst prices possible of what, 4-1 or shorter than that.
Mhm.
All I'm saying is take the opposite side of that. You could have really good numbers on a really good positions on a lot of great bets right now. Like, take your Jackson Smith-Njigba bet, for example, right? Like, that's an amazing number that looks ridiculous right now. There's been a lot of those situations throughout the past 8 weeks. It's just been you've kind of needed to zig when everybody else is zagging, right?
Mhm.
So this might not be the best year for us, but man, I think it's another year that goes by where I see a lot of value in betting the NFL draft.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.